is it is exactly 9:44. We are going to cross over now to the other side of the world. We're going to be looking at the latest updates on the Rohingya situation, and the co-founder of Ad Free Row Coalition is going to talk to us, and his name is Nay San. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Lovely to have you here. The situation in as far as the Rohingya people is concerned has not improved whatsoever. We also know that Aung Suu was jailed. She appeared a few days ago. There's a trial unfolding as we speak. So it's two issues, but very interrelated. I think a lot of the Rohingya people place their hopes on her, and yet she turned out to be quite a disappointment. So I've thrown quite a bit at you. How do you want to start addressing all of those issues?
Well, now, since the first February coup, the situation has been changed. The country is back to the military dictatorship again. They overthrew the civilian government. So for us is to repatriate the more than 1 million people who have been taking shelter in Bangladesh since 2017. There are also the old refugees from the 1992 and also from the 2016. So we are focusing on our issue. And recently, the MP elected in the 2020 November election, they have formed the shadow government. So we are in talk with this government, but since they don't have the power, they can't do anything. But in the country, at least there is something change on Rohingya. Most of the people, majority of the people in Myanmar, they didn't accept the Rohingya, but at least this narrative has been changed. I mean, not largely, but most of the important people, they are now accepting the Rohingya. And also the previous government, they didn't allow us to self-identify Rohingya, but at least this shadow government is accepting. And on the other hand, military is trying to repatriate the people from Bangladesh, but it will not change anything for the Rohingya. What they are trying to do is just bring them back from the Bangladesh and put them in the camp. And, they will build maybe Chinese own the factory there, and the people will, the returnee will walk there. It will be like exactly situation will be like the Uyghur people in China. So, and also in the camp, as you all know, that there were the fire incidents since the last week of March, and also now COVID-19 is spreading across the camp. And just now I spoke with the people in the camp. They said, that that rate is increasing. But since there is no large scale of the testing for this COVID-19, we don't really know how many people have been contracted. But that there is only the small scale of the testing. A dozen of people have recently contracted this COVID-19 positive. We are really worried for this camp situation as well, because the COVID-19 is really dangerous. More than any the military dictatorship,
Your situation sounds dire. On the one hand, you've got the military dictatorship. On the other hand, you've got people that have been thrown into camps with no proper sanitation, no proper medical facilities. Plus, you've got COVID-19 on top of that. And then we also, you're saying that Bangladesh wants to repatriate 1 million Rohingyas back to Myanmar. That's going to add an extra burden to the authorities and to the current Rohingya people living in the camps. Doesn't that seem like a very explosive situation to you?
Well, we don't want to repatriate, frankly speaking, under this military dictatorship. This military are the main perpetrator of the Rohingya genocide. How can we go under their leadership in the country? So the situation will not be changed. On the other hand, the Bangladesh, they really want to repatriate the people, the refugee, because they have been there for almost 4 years now. We really understand the concern of the Bangladesh, but still, we want to ask the Bangladesh government to give us the shelter until we can go back to our country with the human dignity, because under the military dictatorship, we will be treated like the subhuman. As I mentioned earlier, we will be put into the camp, and things will be like the concentration camp, because the remaining Rohingya 600,000 in Rakhine State in Myanmar, they are living in the two different condition. About 150,000 are confined into the camp. The camp are look like the exactly concentration camp that I visited the memorial site in Germany and the Poland. So the remaining 450,000 are confined into their village. They are not allowed to leave from the village. They cannot work for their livelihood, and also there is no freedom of movement, no citizenship. Recently, the military. This regime have launched the pilot project for the citizenship, that they are going to grant the 4 million people in the country citizenship. But for the Rohingya, still they will only give us the national verification card, which is designed for the foreigner. So this is unacceptable. Whatever condition in the countries are unacceptable for us. So we need to wait until civilian government got the power, and also the international community should work to restore the democracy and the civilian government. At least civilian government, as of now, the Shero government, they are at least carrying the international pressure, because after the Congress hearing, they have got a ton of pressure to recognize the Rohingya. So we have to wait and see until the end of the month. They are going to release their statement, and also the Bangladesh government should wait, until because this. If we repatriate now, the important is if we repatriate now, the violence against the Rohingya will repeat. It has been repeating since 1978, though. So we don't want to be refugee again and again, This
absolutely
yeah.
All right. So obviously the situation is very, very dire there. I'm understanding from what you say that there's no health facilities available. Does that also mean that there's no schooling, no education facilities available for the children in the camps? And how do they survive day to day? Because work opportunities are absolutely limited or non-existent.
Yeah, for the education, there are the community school that the youth are volunteering. These are not really covering all the children, because there are about the 50%, at least 50% of the refugee are the children. So the volunteer group, they can only cover a few thousand, not the hundred of thousand. And also there are the school from the other, the NGO and the INGO. Those schools are not the formal school. Most of the school, the children are playing there, singing a song. So these are not the formal education. And the Bangladesh government announced last year for the formal education as a pilot project, they will allow the 10,000. But I don't know what happened to them. But since they have the children are there for almost 4 years, they should have the proper, the formal education. So once they can go back to the country, they can follow back the formal education back in the country. So from the diaspora community, we are supporting as much as we can, but still, these are covering only the few thousand. So this Bangladesh government and all. Yeah.
How are the people surviving in terms of there is no work, in terms of feeding themselves and their families? Is this through foreign aid? Is that how they are surviving? That's question number one. And question number two, before we wrap up, is the majority of the Rohingya were being expelled from Myanmar and they were being sent to an island, some camp island just off the mainland. What has happened to that situation? Did they, in fact, deport the people to that island, or was that halted due to the pressure from the international community?
Well, they are surviving on international aid. You might heard about the recently fundraising for the Rohingya. They need $1 billion in a year. So always, they are facing the underfunding, and the problem is that the Bangladesh government doesn't recognize this refugee as a refugee, So they are there, they identify as forcibly displaced person from Myanmar. Once they are recognized as a refugee, they will have the refugee right. They can walk, they can study. So at least, they will have the right. That is one thing. Another one thing you asked about transferring to the Bhasanchar Island. The island and the camp are now under threat of this cyclone Yas. There were the heavy wind just in recent day. Some shelter were destroyed. So the island, the Bhasanchar is it is the remote island. It appeared just about 20 years ago, and we don't know when this will be disappear again. So we are really worried for the people who have been transferred to this island. The government plan to transfer about the 100,000 there. As of now, I think 12,000 have been transferred. Since there is the cyclone threat as of now, we are really worried for these people. This is not the deportation. This is part of their plan to transfer the 100,000 refugees there.
It's almost like ethnic cleansing. Sad to hear the situation. We hope and pray that the international community comes, supports you in a bigger way. That's where we have to leave it for today. But we do pray for you and the Rohingya people. Go well, and God bless.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
It's exactly 9:57.